talking about the books that I read in August. I ended up reading, I believe, 4 or 5 books, so let's just get started. So the first book I listened to on Audible, and that was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. Now, in one of my previous TBR challenges, I was supposed to read The Six of Crows, but I refused to read that because I wanted to read the Grisha trilogy before I read The Six of Crows. So I decided to pick it up on Audible. I had an extra credit, so I picked it up and listened to it. I have mixed thoughts about this book. I really liked it in the beginning and it really drew me in. I was fascinated by the Darkling character just because he seemed so ambiguous and you didn't know if he was good or bad. I guess I should kind of start off by explaining what the Grisha trilogy is about for those that don't know. It's basically about a Russian-inspired world where there are these people with magical gifts. They all have different abilities, and there is this leader who is called the Darkling who has the ability to amplify other people's powers, including his own, and he has some other random abilities as well. And so there is this part of the world that is the darkness that has these like weird winged creatures that attack people. So one of the Darklings thousands of years before was very evil. He created the darkness and created these winged beings, and now they're with war against the other nations in this world, and the army has go through this darkness, and they usually bring the Darkling to help them. And our main character, she realizes that she's a Grisha as well, that has the power of light, and this is a big revelation because obviously there's this big darkness in the world, so this is area where there's all this darkness, so her light can counteract that. So that's how the story kind of goes from there. I really liked it. I mean, it does kind of follow the magical school plot in the beginning. She starts getting training to gain control of her abilities, and she starts to grow a connection with the Darkling as well. And I liked his character. I liked the way he was voiced in the audiobook, and then towards the end you kind of realize his more true intentions, and he became very one-dimensional after that, and that really annoyed me. I liked the fact that he was ambiguous, and I wish he could have stayed ambiguous for longer in the story. And then after, he just became very one-dimensional, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't read the series. It just didn't really work for me. I liked the idea of the story and the plot. Eventually they are trying to find this magical deer that once killed kind of helps, they can be turned into a necklace that amplifies her powers even more. So that was really interesting, and I liked that part of the story. So I read the first book. I thought it was interesting enough. I was really disappointed with the ending, but I thought the story and the writing style was really great as well. So I thought I would check out the second book. So I started listening to the second book, which is Siege and Storm, and slowly realized that the second book followed at least the beginning of the book. I only got to like 5 hours into the book, and the first part of the book kind of follows a very similar plot to the first book, and it made me think of like Harry Potter and the fact that they're hunting like Horcruxes, and the stag in the first book, and then there's like a sea dragon in the second book. It felt very much like, oh, we have to like find these Horcruxes and then amplify her power, and it was just, I really could not get through the second book at all. And I don't think I'm gonna continue on with the series. It's kind of unfortunate. I don't know if it's just because my interests are changing and I'm not really, have been really a big fan of reading a lot of YA lately, or if the plot, I guess I'm just really upset about the Darkling character, that he becomes so one-dimensional in the end of the first one and throughout what I read from the second book. I really liked his character in the beginning. He's just not what I want him to be, I guess. I guess that's really petty, but I don't think I can continue on reading it because I'm so upset about his character and what the direction it's going. And I'm not interested in the main character at all. Again, this is also in first person. Why can't we just have YA that is in third person? The first person YA is just so whiny and I just don't like it. I'm definitely going to be making a video very soon about why I don't like first person perspectives. There's a lot of reasons, but this book, it embeds all of them, has all of the reasons. I think I'm just going to go ahead and read The Six of Crows and see if I enjoy it better. I do like her writing and I do like the Grisha world. I just didn't really enjoy the plot of this Grisha series at all. And the only thing that was really keeping me hooked on the first book was I did like the school plot, like the school setting, and I did like the Darkling and his interesting, I kind of liked their interesting relationship at the beginning, but then when we realized his true intentions, I just was like, no, this is done. I'm done with this book. So yeah, that's how I felt about the Grisha trilogy. So I'm gonna read The Six of Crows now and see if I have any better feelings about that book. I know a lot of people like The Six of Crows. My mother read the duology and she really enjoyed it, and I trust her judgment very much. So I'm gonna give it a chance and see if I enjoy it too. I'm hoping that it's better. I mean, this book, obviously, I mean, writers evolve in their writing ability, and I don't think she's a bad writer at all, so that's not the issue, but I'm hoping that I like the heist plot better, and potentially like the characters a little bit better, because I think The Six of Crows does follow, like, multiple characters' perspectives, which I think I can gel better with than the one first-person character perspective. So, we'll see. So, I'll let you guys know my thoughts on Six of Crows when I end up reading that one. So, I guess that was 2 books, even though I really don't count the Siege and Storm as a book that I read, just because I DNF'd it. But the next book that I read was Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. So, I am a huge fan of the Dark Crystal movie. If you've not heard of it, it's definitely something you should look up and check out. It's an amazing movie. It's puppets, but it's a dark, really dark Jim Henson movie. It's about these creatures called the Gelfling that have been destroyed, and there is this crystal, and there are these evil Skeksis that's on the cover that are like taking over control of the crystal, and there's this big conjunction coming, and the Gelfling, the only surviving Gelfling, has to restore the crystal, a shard of the crystal, back to the original to stop the Skeksis from their rule, basically. It's a lot more complicated and complex than that, and the movie only touches like a very small portion of the world. Jim Henson created a huge mythology surrounding this world and surrounding the different races of characters, the different species, I guess, and there's a huge mythology and a huge backstory to all of this. So the movie only takes like a section of that, and it's just this weird dark movie. And so Jim Henson decided to create a novelization of it, and this, I believe, is like the anniversary edition of this the novelization. The novelization originally came out pretty close after the movie came out. This was written by A.C.H. Smith, but it has notes from Jim Henson when A.C.H. Smith submitted his first draft of the book about some of the notes that he wanted to change about the novelization. So I wanted to pick this up one because, one, I really love The Dark Crystal and I want to learn more about the mythology behind it. I also picked up another book that talks more about the world of The Dark Crystal, which was a great find. I found it on which was a great find because that book is out of print right now, and I am super excited to get to that one. But I wanted to check out the novelization just to see if it provided any more backstory to the characters, any more backstory to the world in general. It does follow very true to the to the movie, so I don't feel like you really need to read both of them unless you're like a super nerded out fan like I am. You follow Jen, who is the Gelfling and the main character, and the book does go more into his inner monologue and thoughts, so that's something that you don't really necessarily get from the movie. But yeah, I think it's a good companion, so I don't think I would recommend it if you've seen the movie and that's enough for you. Like, you enjoyed the movie, but it's not something you're like nerdy about. I don't think this is necessary to read, but I am a book nerd, so I had to pick it up, and it was good. It's just basically the same thing as the movie, with a little bit extra to it. But I think the movie is a lot more powerful just because of the imagery that you get. I mean, there is a lot of sketches from Brian Fraud, who designed all of the puppets for the movie, so you do get a lot of sketches, but I think the movie is just a better representation of the story in general. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading it, and I'm glad I have it in my collection now. And I think Netflix is coming out with a series that's happened after or before the events of the movie, so I'll be interested to check that out. And I know it's probably the Dark Crystal in general, the fandom is probably going to resurface when that Netflix series comes out, so I'm just preparing and stocking up on as much literature of the worlds as I can get. So that's why I kind of picked this one up. The next book that I read, I have a copy of, but I loaned it to my mother. The Unbreakable Miss Lovely, How the Church of Scientology Broke Paulette Cooper. I mentioned this book in a book haul, my birthday book haul. My brother got it for me. I was really excited about it because I've been interested in Scientology for a while, and to pick up a book that kind of discusses more about it, it was very interesting. This follows the journalist Paulette Cooper, who kind of discovers Scientology from a friend and wants to explore more about it, and then writes not even a lot about Scientology. She ends up writing, I believe, 2 articles and then publishes a book about it. But the Church of Scientology starts to attack her and ruin her reputation in order to falsify her claims in these stories. So it's about her experience dealing with how it tries to ruin her. They do a lot of insane and crazy things. It's amazing how much they were able to get away with when trying to frame her for things. They framed her for bomb threats. It's really crazy. So if you're at all interested in Scientology and the craziness that they have done, this is a book for you. It's really good. At points it does get a little bit boring because you are following Paulette's life pretty closely, so it does get more into her personal life, her relationship, so it's not all closely related to Scientology, but there are parts where the story kind of veers onto the perspective of some of the Scientology agents that were stealing documents from the IRS and all of this. So you do get to see the perspective of Paulette, but also the perspective of some of the Scientology agents. And Paulette helped write this book. I believe the book is by, Tony Ortega, and he helped, with the help of Paulette Cooper, writes this book. And he interviews a lot of former Scientologists, a lot of FBI agents that were investigating the case, and it's amazing. It's an amazing book. There were like weird mistakes that I feel like a publisher or editor would have picked up on, but otherwise the writing was pretty well done, and I really liked it. I think it's definitely worth picking up if you learned anything about Scientology and want to learn more. It's really good. And finally, I read Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Eddo-Lodge. It's about race in the UK, and I fell in love with this book. It's so interesting. As an African American, I've really only dealt with what the racial tension and racial divide in the United States and racial history and slavery in history in the United States. So it was very interesting to see the history of racial tension and the racial divide in the UK and how that is permeating in the present day. So it was such a good book just by the amount of information in it. She describes everything in a way that it's good for people that are just learning about it. So she describes terms in a way that people that don't understand them would easily be able to understand, but it also provides a lot of information for people that are already familiar with the topic and already have a solid understanding of it but want to get a deeper understanding. So I think she does a really good job of balancing the two, and also balancing the two audiences. I find that a lot of books on race are really geared towards either talking to white people or sympathizing with people of color, but this book does a great mix of both. It talks to white people directly, but also sympathizes with people of color and talks about their struggles in a way that people of color can understand, and it's geared towards them as well as white people. I really, really enjoyed this book, and the way it was written was so well done. Most books about race I'm really here for because of the topic being covered. That's really what hits me, and that's really what I enjoy about the book. But the fact that this book was so well written, it just made me love this even more. Each chapter is divided into a very specific topic. So the first chapter, she talks about the history of race in the UK, and then she talks about racism as a structural construct rather than a thing that everyone can be racist, when it's really about what the structure in the society has built up racism, and that racism is power plus discrimination, not just discrimination. And then there is a section about racism and feminism, what is white privilege, but each chapter flows into the next one. It's so well written and I really love it. I also loaned my copy to my mother and I took so many notes in it. I wish I could show you. It's just like pages and pages of highlighted text and scribbles in it, and I'm just, it's probably one of the best books I've read this year, honestly, and I'm so glad that I finally picked it up, and it's so worth the read. If you want to know anything about race, if you want to become woke, it's the book you need to read. Even if you're American like myself, live in the UK, no matter where you are, this is a book you should read. Those are the books that I ended up getting through in August. You may have noticed if you watched my August TBR picks that none of those books made it on my wrap up today. So I did not end up reading any of those books, but I am currently reading The Glass Sword, which was on that list, but I just didn't finish it in August. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing my September TBR picks very soon, and I'll talk more about my epic fail of August. So yeah, thanks again for watching my August wrap up, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what books you read in the month of August, or if you read any of the books that I mentioned today in the comments below, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye!